Hello. Yeah, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Are you able to hear me? So let's begin the session. In the last class, we have finished with part number 1, that is need assessment, or what are the various steps that is followed in the need assessment. Now, anyone any doubts in these 13 steps that we followed that we have started in the last class? Yeah. First one is the planning, the data collection phase. After that, there's the data analysis, data reporting, and the priority settings. Any doubt, anyone in this? Now let's move to the part number 2, that is the project planning and the implementation. So we have finished with the part number 1, that is the need assessment. Next part number 2 is the project planning and the implementation. How to do the project planning and implementation. So let's begin with the introduction. So once the need for the project is understood, so once we understood that what is the main need, what is the main criteria for understanding and authorization, that is the proceed is secured. So the planning team faces the task of designing a specific education project that assesses that need. So there's a specific need that is captured by the education project that addresses what is the main need that is understood and what is the authorization task that is well defined. And the project planning also requires an attention to what might at times seems like. So what is the main detail that is carried out with the big picture in the mind, and the end effort spent in planning an education project will also off in the ultimate effectiveness. And this portion of the manual has been developed to help the project coordinators and anticipate some of the mutual tasks, that is what is the various tasks, and define the project desires or desired outcomes. Ultimately what we hope the participant will learn. So what is the project planning, how it will happen, and how we can implement the project. So project planning and the implementation. The next is planning and implementing an education project. So just as conducting a successful need assessment that depend on taking a systematic approach, so project design benefits are also taken out the careful attention to the planning process. Whatever the time that is involved in planning an education project, that usually depends on the project complexity and the number of stakeholders involved. So whatever the number of stakeholders that is involved in the project planning, so that is defined on the project scenario, that is defined on the complexity and the number of the stakeholders. And there are total 12 steps to planning and implementing a project that is break into the multiple steps, into the multiple categories, as with each of the major sections in this document. So please recognize that much of the details has been left out. And these are just the overview of these steps. So what are the various steps that is used in implementation and the planning of education. And for example, the need to establish a budget and the schedule are only the predefined or briefly mentioned. So that also requires a considerable effort to develop. At each and every step, determining how extensive a process that should be undertaken, that also depends on the nature of the project, and obviously the project that involves the development of the material for others, that is also carried out with the project planning with the nature of the project. The development of the material for the others to use will be very different from one that involves the training individuals to make the presentation to the civic groups or teach the school children. And the steps outlined below are the various steps that is used that must be adapted to meet the specific needs and the resources of the project. As mentioned previously, the example in this section can also provide an indication of how others have planned education projects in the similar situations. Now these are the 12 steps. Step number 1 is assess need and the capability. Either it is reassess, either it is assess need and the capability, then establish the project planning team. Whatever the project planning team that is available, so that establishes the project planning team. Develop the project goals and the objectives. Whatever the project goals and the objectives, so we should develop that project's goals and the objectives. Then develop a logic model. whatever the logic model that is established. Then select and characterize the audience. So whatever the audience selection, whatever the attribute that must be selected in detail, that must be going in detail for the audience scenario. Then establish the program format and delivery system. Whatever the delivery system, whatever the program format that must be available, so that must be used for the delivery systems. So whatever the program, what is the program format? So we should establish, and also the delivery system. Then ensure quality instructional staff. So what are the various quality instructional staff that is used? Then quality instructional material and the strategies, whatever the quality instruction material that is required, and whatever the strategies that is followed to ensure the project planning and the implementation. Then assemble the materials, resources, and facilities. So we have to assemble. So first of all, we are designing, we are taking out all these things, and we have to assemble the materials, resources, and the facilities. Then plan for the emergencies, promote, market, and disseminate the project. So plan for emergencies means we have to plan for the emergencies if there's an emergency that is required. Then promote, market, and disseminate the project. So we have to promote in the market, we have to disseminate in the market whatever the scenarios that is used in disseminations, then implement the project. So these are the 12 steps that is used in the project planning and the implementation phase. Let's start with the need and the capability, then project planning team, then develop the project goals and the objective, logic model, audience, program format, then quality instructional staff, then quality material and strategies, then assemble the projects, materials, resources, then plan for the emergencies, promote, market, and disseminate the project. Whatever the market criteria that is used, then implement the project. So let's start with the step number 1, that is reassess the agency need and the capabilities. Whosoever or whatsoever the agency needs, that must be categorized, that must be developed with the need and the capabilities. During the need assessment phase, the project team used the targeting outcomes of the program, that is TOP model, to prioritize the needs and the assess opportunity. Whatever the outcomes of the priority model, or whatever the top models, or whatever the targeting outcomes of the programs model that is used to prioritize needs and assess the opportunities. And the needs assessment highlights the gap between the current and the desired social, economic, and environmental condition. Whatever the environmental condition that is followed up, whatever the scenario that is used, so we have to follow it up with the social, economic, and the environmental conditions, as well as the practices that is followed up, or that gives rise to the condition and the knowledge, attitudes, skills, and the aspirations. So there's a top model that is developed, and there is also a CASA, that is a knowledge, attitude, skills, and the aspiration that also inform the practice. And with the need assessment recommendation in the hand. So whenever we are using the need assessment recommendation, the project manager should revisit the issue to determine if the project or the proposed project is consistent with the main issues or the missions and the priorities. And the need may have a higher priority, but it is also quite possible that there not be a most appropriate organization to tackle it. So we have to assess the agency needs and the capability, whatever the conditions, whatever the knowledge, attitude, behavior, that also informs the practice. And the need assessment team also use the existing project that based on a quantitative understanding of the issue be analyzed. And also notice that the project also needs and potential strategy have been calculated. Further, it is important to more fully inventory existing project, that is both inside and outside, to determine the areas of the potential duplication. And by conducting this inventory, the interrelationship among the existing projects and the proposed material must be considered, and the functions of the project, new project are contrasted with the existing activities. Whatever the new project, whatever the new scenario that is used, that must be projected, that must be proposed with the new project that is used with existing activities. And on the same way, similarly, project managers should take these opportunities to step back and inventory existing resources. Whatever the opportunity that is used for the step back and inventory existing resources, that may be a human, financial, physical, and the material resources, And there is a little to gain from entering into the extensive project design process to determine that funding and personnel are insufficient to support this activity. So we have to assess first of all the need and the capabilities, whatever the need and the capability that is used in the designing phase. The next one, step number 2, is establish the project planning team. So first step is assessing, then next is establish project planning team. So in all the likelihood, a number of the potential partnerships and the collaborative arrangements were identified. So we have identified the need assessment, we have identified the teams. All right. Then the next part is establishing the project planning team. So in the likelihood, the number of the potential partnerships, or whatever the number of potential partnerships and the collaborative arrangements that were identified and built during the need assessment phase, and stakeholders from both inside and outside of the education teams that were identified. That means we are generating the planning team for the education coordinator that might want to evaluate how well the need assessment planning team functions and consider some or the more of the members to continue to participate in the project planning process, whatever the planning process that is used to participate in this. And establishing a broad-based project planning team is one way of tapping the expertise and continuing the process of developing the partnerships and the collaborations. What are the partnerships? What is the collaborations? That is used with the focus, that is used with the phase of project development, that is on design and development. Implementation, we can say, that is quite foreseeable that additional members will need to be recruited to the team. Additional members need to be gained into the team, and depending on the levels of the expertise, individual with an understanding of the science related to the specific issues, as well as those with experience designing an instructional activity that may be needed. And with the need assessment planning team, role and expectations must be delimited, must be used. It also notice that whenever we are evaluating the project planning team, that must be or need to be established. To ensure that the evaluation is considered is one of the main steps, so we have to do the evaluation in each step in the project design and the implementation process. Education coordinator should form the evaluation project planning or planning team now. And depending on the project, whatever the timeline, whatever the complexity that is developed, the evaluation planning team might function as well as a subcommittee of the overall design planning team. And whatever the importance that is given for forming an evaluation team early cannot be overlapped. And even though the evaluation depends on the integrated upon criteria, that is designing, planning, and implementation process. So first one is assessing agency needs and the capability. The next one is establish the project planning team. That means what are the various individuals that is included in the project planning team. The next one is develop project goals and the objective. That is what are the various goals, whatever the project goals, and whatever the objective that is. We have to develop that. So as with an activity, it is important to know where you are going. And while the need assessment should also provide a purpose and direction for the project, planning helps fill in the detail for how you are going to accomplish your goals, objective. That means how you are going to accomplish whatever the goals, whatever the objective that is considered. And it is now time to revisit the project goals and the objectives or the targets that are identified at each level of the TOP programming staircase or with one of the team's future work. And the goals also provides a big picture of what is to be accomplished by undertaking the project. And although the project goals are typically not measurable, they also describe the desired impact of the project in the broad terms. What's the reason for this goal? That is very difficult or impossible to measure because it is not specific in the. For example, when I talk about a set or the PP at one search chart, that is also used for the managers to gain a better understanding of the environmental issues and the regulations. And the CTP, that is Coastal Training Program, establishes a series of the hands-on science-based training for the professional who make the decisions about what are the various coastal managements in the Washington state. And objectives, on the other hand, also provide specific endpoints or measurable outcomes that should be developed for each level of the OTP or TAP programming staircase. And one objective for the CTP training course, how to determine the ordinary higher power point. that is for the planners, that is responsible for Washington State Shoreline Management Act, that is SMA, that is following the proper protocol used in determining the OHWM, that is ordinary high water mark, when approving the shorter or short line development permits. The objective must be clear in with the pitch with the program. That must be specific impact of the program, that will be and the degree to which the impact must occur. And the objectives also specify what the audience will be do or will be able to do. That means what the role of the audience that is used and what the specific change that will be to the resource issue after the intervention. That is writing the SMART objectives. That is strength, measurable, yes. And whatever the measurable objective that will not facilitate the design and the implementation of the project, but also its evaluation. That means it is not only facilitate whatever the design and the implementation phase, but also its evaluation. That is how we can evaluate the product, how we are going to evaluate the content. And when we draft the objective, the project teams should also develop a clear conception of how the science will be developed and promoted throughout the project. And the big goal also provides a big picture of the ultimate vision of the program. And when we write the goal task, what will the condition that look in the 5 or the 3 years, what is the perfect world that is regarding the social, economic or the environmental issue or the problem. And there are multiple methods of writing the good goal. So these are suggestions. We can say the 3 suggestions that is given for the effective project goal statements. First one is state the goal in the present tense. Even though the goal might not reach until 5 years from now, but it must be in the present tense. This is one of the suggestions for writing the effective project goal statement. Then write the goal with an unspecified or indefinite endpoint. For example, when we write to improve the ability of the extension and the education professional to measure the impact and outcome of their project and the project. So write the goal with an unspecified or indefinite endpoint. There is no endpoint for this. Then state the broad anticipated impact of the project. The first one is state the goal in the present tense. Then write the goal with an unspecified or indefinite endpoint. Then state the broad anticipated impact of the project. What is the main broad anticipated impact of the project? Then next step is step number 4, develop a logic model. So once the team members have agreed on the goals and the objective, they are in a position to draft the rest of the project. So as we have developing the project planning team, assessing the projects, done with the projects, done with the resources, everything. Next one is developing a logic model, how it is created. That means what is the main logic that is used or that is to be used behind the endpoints. So once the team members have agreed on the goals and the objectives, they are in a position to draft the rest of the project. So once they have agreed, project team will be considered as a good one. So they have agreed on the goals and the objective. Now they are in a position to draft the rest of the project. And at this stage, the project planners find the development of a project logic model, particularly what is helpful for the project planners. And the TOP model also provided the framework by which objectives or the targets were specified. What is the main objective? What is the main target? And there is a logic model that also conveys the detail that is needed to carry out the program. What is the main detail in the logic model and how it is going to do to carry out the program. And logic model will also serve as a guide for the evaluation that is used for the evaluation task. And logic model is the semantic of how the project will work, how to link the project outcomes, that may be a short-term, intermediate and the long-term projects. Now, what is the meaning of the SMART objective for the project? What is the main SMART term that is found a set of the criteria that is used in the acronym SMART. So SMART means specific, measurable, audience, relevant, time bound. So these are the 5 words that is given as a SMART objective. So that is used with a SMART: specific, measurable, audience, relevant, time bound. That must also determine or delineate a specific time frame. So specific in the sense, describe an action, behavior, outcome or achievement that is observable, that is how to use with, that is we have to determine the objectives, that is specific. Then measurable, we have to measure the content, we have to take the logic, that is measurable, that must be towards meeting the goal. Then audience, identify the audience, who are the audience, that is used for the planning team, that is responsible for implementing the management acts, that may be what are the various participants or what are the various community members, that is audience. Then relevant, that is what we are doing, it is relevant to the task, it is relevant to the main goal, main objective of the organization or not. Then time bound. Time bound means within the time budget. For example, if I'm saying that this project will complete within the 6 months, that means 6 months means 6 months. Before 6 months, that is okay, but before after 6 months, that is beyond the deadline. That is not okay for the project. That is smart objective, specific, measurable, audience, relevant, and time bound. And whatever the project output, whatever the project input, whatever the resources that is given, so logic model also provides a roadmap that also shows how the project is expected to work. What is the main target of the project, how it works, that is specific to the organization or without the organization, what are the various activities, how these activities will be arranged in a logical order, that is the logical order of the activities, and how the desired outcome will be achieved. So first one is what is expectations, what is the main aim of the work, what are the various activities, and how these activities will become in a sequence, will be work, and how the desired outcomes will be achieved. And the use of a logic model also forces a background design of the overall project, and by first determining the ultimate or desired long-term, intermediate, or the short-term outcomes, the planning team is in a better position to identify what are the various appropriate project activities, resource need, and the time frames. That is the overall project, that is determining the ultimate goal with the long-term, intermediate, and the short-term outcomes. So specific describes an action, behavior, outcome, or the achievement that is observable. For example, following department is the ecology protocol that is determining the ordinary high watermark, what are the community shore point cleanups, and incorporate the educational material or the aquatic spaces that is used for the specific learning domains. This is know, comprehend, apply, analyze, synthesize, evaluate. The next one is a measurable. So this also defines or details the quantifiable. We can count them. What are the various quantifiable indicators of the progress towards meeting the goal? That may includes the local shore point planner that is responsible for implementing the Washington State's shorelines management acts. 70% of the participants. What are the 544 aquatic invasive species? The next one is audience, that also identifies the audience. Local shore point planners, Washington State Shoreline Management Act, workshop participants, and that describes the outcome from the perspective of the audience. Then relevant, that is a meaningful, realistic, and ambiguous. The audience can also accomplish this task or make the specific impact. Then time bound, that is a time bound means time limit to determine a specific time frame. Example, 6 months after participating in the ordinary high water mark class,